Good afternoon, class. Continuation of our discussion in macroeconomics. The next chapter will be discuss or is all about GDP, the importance of GDP, the definition of GDP, and how to compute GDP. So, tingnan natin kung paano ba, kung ano ba yung kung ano ba yung importansya ng malaman natin yung GDP ng isang bansa, particularly yung bansa natin, paano siya kino-compute. So, in this topic, we will try to learn all these things under GDP. So, first, let us look what is the measurement of the economy. So, what reasons do we have for a measurement of the economy? Siyempre, andyan yung for the future, government action, historical accounts, comparing ourselves to others, and curiosity. So, ito yung mga dahilan kung bakit kailangan natin malaman yung progress ng isang economy, and one way to know the progress of a particular country is the measurement of its GDP. Yun yung isang sukatan natin. Siguro naman napakinig nyo na yung word na GDP, ano, or Gross Domestic Product. Okay, sa economy or sa economics, ito yung basis or isa to sa sukatan kung paano natin malalaman o masasabi how progressive that country is. So, ito yung tinitingnan. Okay, particularly ito yung measurement na tinitingnan. Okay, so sabi dito, economists study economic performance using national income accounting, a system of collecting statistics on production, income, investment, and savings. Sa Amerika, the U.S. Department of Commerce collects this data in the form of National Income and Products Out Accounts or NIPA. Sa Amerika to, okay? So, tingnan natin, what is GDP? It's the dollar or the peso value of all final goods and services produced in a country's border in a given year. So, say for instance, ang USA is may GDP na 14.25 trillion each year. That's the average. So, yun yung average na GDP ng America for that year. Okay, sa Philippines, the GDP was estimated at 357 billion dollars last 2019. Okay, so that's the GDP. For this year, it is estimated at 350 or 360 billion for this year. So, lumaki yung GDP natin. Estimation lang naman yon for 2020. Siyempre, yung projection na yon is, it was done nung pagpasok ng 2020, okay? Siyempre, nagkaroon tayo ng pandemic, nagkaroon tayo ng COVID, hindi natin alam kung anong epekto nito sa ating GDP. Malamang bumaba. Okay, but anyway, so yun yung total output of the final goods produced in a country within a given year. That's the GDP. So we have different types of goods. GDP includes goods produced in the country by a foreign country, kasama doon. So yung mga foreign country na nag-establish or nag-offshore dito sa ating bansa, kasama siya in measuring GDP. Kasi syempre, yung pinuproduce ng bansa ng mga company na yon, dito na po-produce sa Pilipinas, dito siya accounted sa bansa natin. Okay, whether it's a foreign country or locally owned country or locally owned company, where it's a foreign company or locally owned company, the fact is, once na dito siya na-produce, accounted siya sa ating GDP. Okay? Pero, halimbawa naman, may mga Philippine company na nag-establish sa ibang bansa. Okay? Hindi na yung papasok sa ating GDP. O yung mga output nun, regardless kung maliit o malaki, yung output nun, hindi na siya accounted sa GDP natin ng Pilipinas kasi syempre, doon na siya na-produce sa ibang bansa. Pero yung ibang bansa o yung ibang company na galing sa ibang bansa, nag-establish sa Pilipinas, yung mga na-produce niya, papasok sa GDP natin. Okay? GDP does not include intermediate goods, goods used to produce final goods para ma-prevent yung double counting. Okay? So, ito yon mga intermediate goods. So, meron tayong formula para maka-come up tayo sa GDP. Meron diyang mga consumption, spending by ordinary consumers plus investment, spending by businesses on new equipment, plus spending by all levels of government, and spending by foreigners who buy American goods or exports, minus spending by Americans on foreign goods or imports. So ito yung simple calculation to measure GDP. Sa lahat ng factors na to, ibig sabihin ito yung mga factors na included sa pag-measure ng GDP. Okay? Consumption ng ordinary households or businesses, investment ng businesses, government spending, pati yung mga investment, kasama din dyan, government spending and puhunan, plus yung export natin minus the import. Okay? Yung export, it will count as GDP natin, pero syempre, yung ini-import naman natin, it will count naman sa loss ng GDP natin. Kaya ileles natin yun. Yung export na pumasok sa ating GDP and yung import na supposed to be GDP natin pero hindi nga since dun siya na-produce sa ibang bansa, ang mangyayari, ileles natin yun sa export natin. Okay? Kasi yung export, dito natin pinuproduce. Pag sinabing export, dito siya pinuproduce, dinadala sa ibang bansa. Pag sinabing import, dun siya na-produce, papunta sa Pilipinas. Okay? So, ang gagawin dyan, yung export na na-produce dito, ileles naman yung import na na-produce doon and it will generate GDP. Okay? So, ano naman yung consumer goods? Durable goods last for relatively long periods of time, 2 years or more. Meron diyang kotse, DVD players, refrigerators, and non-durable goods, lagay ng pagkain, gasolina, load, yan yung mga load sa cellphone, yan yung mga non-durable goods. So, GDP reporting sa USA, tingnan natin. Purchasing power parity, 11.75 trillion or 14.25 trillion. GDP real growth rate, 4.4 or 2.6% per capita. So, mamaya tingnan natin kung paano na-compute lahat ng yan, kung paano siya nag-come up sa ganyan. Siyempre, may shortcomings ng GDP. Tingnan natin. GDP ignores most goods and services that people produce but don't sell. It doesn't measure the value of leisure time. It fails to take into account the value of illegal production occurring in the so-called underground economy. So, yung mga illegal na mga transaction, okay, na hindi siya registered, hindi siya papasok sa GDP. Okay, kaya nga ang parating bili ng ating gobyerno is i-registered. Siyempre, pag legal, hindi mo siya i-register. Alangan namang i-registered mo pa siya. Okay, understood na yun, hindi mo siya i-registered. Ang problema nga doon, hindi siya accounted sa ating GDP. Hindi siya binibilang. Yung mga illegal transactions, yung mga black markets na sinasabi, hindi siya papasok sa production output natin. It is unable to accurately measure changes in the production from year to year due to inflation. It fails to take into account negative externalities, unintended consequences. It does not account for depreciation. So like this one, ito accounted to. This is ito yung mga illegal logging, no? Ito leisure time, hindi rin siya counted. Siyempre ito, marijuana, hindi rin siya counted. So nominal and real GDP. So pag sinabing nominal, it is expressed in current prices, the value of the dollar today. Ngayon, ang real GDP expressed in constant prices, the dollar values of a particular year. So just for inflation, GDP in current prices is converted into inflation-adjusted GDP, which economists call real GDP. Changes in real GDP over time show changes in real production. So later we will see kung paano competent tong mga to. So this is an example of GDP, 1984 minimum wage. $3.32. Ang gas was 7.79 per gallon. So, noong 2006, naging 6.25. Here. Price ng gas was 3.45 gallon. Tumaas ang sweldo. Tumaas din yung price ng gas. So 2010, tumaas ulit ang sweldo, tumaas din yung price ng gas. So sumasabay lang siya. So factors that affect GDP, supply and demand play a role in GDP. Economists calculate the price level, the average of all prices. Aggregate supply. So alam niyo na naman siguro kung ano yung aggregate supply. The total amount of goods and services in the economy available at all possible price levels. Aggregate demand is the amount of goods and services in the economy that will be purchased at all possible price levels. The intersection of aggregate supply and aggregate demand on a graph indicates the equilibrium price level of the economy. So, ano naman itong GNP? Siguro napaparinig nyo rin siya, pero hindi siya ganun kagamit. Okay? Sabi dito, GNP includes income earned by a country outside the country but does not include the income earned by foreign firms doing business in the country. So, medyo magulo siya kung titingnan natin. Kaya hindi siya masyado ginagamit. Okay, sabi nga dito, GNP is a bit messier in practice. So, hindi siya magandang gamitin in computation. So, ang malimit gamitin natin is the GDP nga. Okay?